holding you, you're holding me. My heart, it feels like a dancer. You got my plans, you got me right. You saved the moment like a dancer.
All right, so I'm really excited to talk about this one. This is going to be the new Realflow plugin for Cinema 4D. Realflow is a program that's been around for a couple of years now and is really just the top end for doing liquid simulations or other things that behave like liquids. But for today, we're going to talk about just using it for fluid simulations. The really wonderful thing about this is we don't need to go and export or save anything out. We're doing this all as if it were completely Cinema 4D tools. So you can see we have access to all our materials, all our other stuff in Cinema 4Ds, modifiers and things like this. But this is basically what we've got for Realflow. So first we're going to start off. We're going to create a circle emitter. And when we do that, it's created a whole hierarchy for all the things necessary for a Realflow scene. So let's go through and see what we've got. So we've got one sort of scene container, that's called a scene object. And this contains the characteristics for the particular solver we're using, the cache, which is probably the thing you use the most for the scene object, and just how you'd like your scene to be displayed. Sometimes you really don't need the icon. All right, and then the mesher, let's add a mesher. Let's go in here, Realflow, and there's just one, and you just hit it, and it automatically, if you only have one mesher in the scene, it'll automatically go into the proper place in your tree here. And then let's see, our emitter is a circle emitter. And now under emitter type, we've got quite a few here, but let's first just talk about the characteristics of the circle emitter. And then here under fluids, this is the way our situation is being solved. And we have PBD, SPH, and these sort of dumb fluids, which are sort of quick but not as sophisticated as the other two types. But let's just stick with our default PBD for now. And this is also some important things: the resolution and the density. So for now, we're going to leave it at this relatively low resolution so we can have some speedy calculations. But for getting more realistic results, you're usually turning up your resolution. All right. So now let's just turn on quickly. Let's see what's going on. And we got this sort of slow toothpaste coming out. And let's turn off the mesher, because what the mesher does is just give a polygonal approximation of what's going on with these particles. All right. So now at this point, we don't have anything going on. So let's see. Let's take our emitter, and I'm going to put it at a little bit of an angle here, and move it a little bit. And now notice they're just moving in a parallel direction, not being affected by anything. So now let's go in here, and we're going to add a gravity daemon. So go under daemons and gravity, and just by choosing it, it's automatically put in the correct place in our scene tree. All right, and let's check out its attributes. And let's just leave it at its non-bounded, meaning it's affecting the entire scene universally. And let's just leave it as the default force. And now, look, see, when we go from the side, see it's squirting out this way, but it's dropping off. Let's turn our emitter a little bit. All right, let's hit it again. There we go. And now we can start to see some of the characteristics of the emitter a little bit more. So let's go back to here and see. Let's turn down the speed a little bit. You see, it kind of goes pop, 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 pop. Sometimes that regularity is a little disconcerting because it's certainly not normal if you saw a faucet or something. So let's look at our vertical and horizontal random, and we'll add a little bit of that. Crank that up a little bit till we have a little bit. Yeah, now we see. Now it's a little bit more irregular, a little bit more natural looking. There we go. That's looking nice. All right. So now an important thing is we want to interact with things. I mean, that's really one of the really amazing strengths of Realflow. So let's make a little container for us to pour some liquid into. Let's create a cylinder, and we'll make it a little bit better shape here. All right, and let's hit C to turn that into a polygonal object, and then go to point mode, and then just select that top point and delete it. And now we've got sort of an empty dish. Now let's select our cylinder and right click and go to Realflow tags and just hit collider. And for now, we're not going to, we're just going to leave it at its default settings. And let's check out our scene, see what's going on. Yeah, you see our particles are hitting the bottom and bouncing around. Let's turn on our mesher and get a clearer look of how our fluid is looking. Now, wonderful. We see these cool droplets, but notice it's sort of chugging along, even with these kind of low resolution settings. So now let's go to our scene object and go to cache and say cache simulation, and it will automatically check that. And here it's going through pretty fast because our scene is relatively short. And the settings for our emitter are also relatively low. Sometimes when you're caching out your simulation, you know, it could easily take many minutes or sometimes even hours for a complex scene. But now let's check out our scene. See, it just plays along at nice real time, and I can scrub it. See, and if I had not cached the scene, each time I move it, it's trying to calculate it from go, and really you're just going to crash your scene trying to make these micro adjustments in an uncached scene because it's just trying to start to recalculate it. And also, say for instance, I just like, oh, I play this and this is not cached. I like this scene and I want to just render out just this one frame. It will have to cache and calculate the particle spaces for all the previous frames before getting to that one. So caching out your scene is a very important part of your workflow, so get used to doing it often. And it just, you know, also especially if you're saving out your scene, because unless you save and have this in some decent location, this will not be saved with your scene. But if you do cache out your simulation, it will be. All right, let's check it out. Oh, looking really nice. And we can see how it's bouncing up and beating up. Let's make some materials just to see a little bit of difference between these guys. Okay, put one on our mesher, and we'll just make that one red. And then we'll just make another material. And this one, maybe kind of light bluey green. And this will be our dish. Let me change this. All right, let's give another quick run. Yeah, now we're seeing, we can really see the contrast and see the shape of what's going on. Now let's stop our flow here, and now at this point, let's turn our mesher off. At this point, the position of our particles is set because that's what's been cached. But in addition, in the look of our particles, in addition to the settings of our particles, we also have the settings in our mesher. So let's select mesher and go to mesh, and let's enable it, and let's check out how some of these changes occur. And let's select auto build for now, so our changes will be reflected in real time. And let's Let's start with radius. Let's make these particles a little bit bigger. And see how they start to join together? And now let's try smooth a little bit. Kind of averages it out. Depends what we want to look. If we want to keep droplets, then thinning is nice. If it starts, if it's not something like honey, if it's something more like milk or water, you can really thin it down to make it very thin. If you just want to have just like water droplets on the surface, and then relax is also nice to sort of take any hard edges off it. And now let's check out our animation. Same particle position, but just the way in which the mesh is interpreting is different. And you can also set for different mesh resolutions. Let's check out medium. It's a little slower, and it affects how these things are interpreted. So you just have to go through it and see what is necessary. And obviously, the higher the resolution, the little bit slower it's rendering. But it just depends on what your needs are. And to tell you the truth, often the lowest resolution looks great. So don't feel like you have to use these higher resolutions to get nice results. All right, let's look at a couple of these other daemons, because they are really an important part of our workflow. So now let's look what's happening here. See, now here we've got a pretty neat solution going on here. But let's say our emitter here, let's go back to the beginning, is maybe a little bit bigger. And maybe some of those particles are missing. Oops. See, now what's going on? We have our cached simulation. So it is not recognizing the new position of the emitter. So here I'm going to stop it. Go to scene. We'll cache the simulation again. And this time it will recognize the new emitter shape and position, and will write over this file. And now notice this time it's a little slower, because what's happening is a lot of these particles are going and falling forever. So let's cancel our cache process. Yeah, see what's going on here? So I'm going to just let it play for a second and see what's going on. All right, so let's hit our emitter. Let's increase our speed a little bit. Let's see what's going on here. Right, it's cached. Let's not use cache. A little slow, but it's a fresh simulation. Okay, there we go. Got some of them going in and some of them that are missing. So now often, here, let's just hit stop a second. Often when you've got a shot, this is your shot. So it's like all this stuff down here, your computer's calculating all these positions and interactions, and you're not seeing any of it. So it's really just wasting you and your computer's time. So that's what, let's look at these selection of daemons. All these kill isolated, that's what the K stands for. Kill age, kill isolated, kill speed, and kill volume. That's to get rid of extra particles, so you're not slowing down your simulation. So let's check some of them out. So here I'm going to just go back to the beginning, and let's check out the kind of more obvious ones first. Okay, where are we? Daemons. Let's check out kill volume, and that is just this box. And let's make the box a little bigger. Now, all the daemons have or most of them have these sort of influence areas, like gravity did. Say, like if you were doing some space scene, you wouldn't want there to be just an overall gravity. You want it to just be the the area around the planets. So now, like for instance, if our shot is something like that, we don't care about all this whatever is going on down here. So now let's turn on our particles and check out what's going on. See, all right, there's some that are missing. Now look, the ones that are leaving that box, and now check it out. I've even cut off some of the ones from my emitter. So what I would probably do there is just make my box bigger, I guess. I really don't want too much below the surface of my dish here. This is mainly to catch ones that are falling. All right, let's check that out. See, and there we go. All right, let's do a quick simulation. Let's see how much faster it starts to simulate the particles now. See, it's chugging right along because it's not spending the computational strength calculating all this stuff that you're not even seeing. So in a way, the strength of Realflow can be sort of a two-edged sword because it's so strong that it'll just drag your computer down to these gigantic calculations that will never finish. So the key is just to limit its strength to what you need it for, and that's what will get you the best results. And look at this. We'll probably have this whole cached within less than a minute. And yeah, if you had several scenes, you know, you'd probably be naming these. All right, here it is. All right, let's check it out. All right, that's looking great. Chugs a little bit, just because, you know, it's getting to be a complex scene. But look, see? We can scrub it in the scene. And then when we get a tighter shot, look at that spicy spaghetti sauce. So we've got all the nice goodness coming over the edge, but we don't have to worry about our computer calculating all this stuff that's not seen. All right, let's look at some of these other kill options. Let's check some of those guys out. All right, kill volume is one of the most obvious ones. And you see here we've got a lot of these like little drops all over the place. If we don't want too many of those, that's the time for the kill isolated. And one thing I want to mention that can be a little confusing, a lot of these values are not talking about frames. They're talking about seconds. So don't think this is just talking about, oh, after frame 1. This is talking about up to, in this case, frame 30. So if any of these single droplets are lasting longer than 30 frames, that's when you start chiseling this down. So I actually think a minute is or a second is kind of long for this. I'm going to try something like a third. So now let's try our simulation. I know, seems like you're doing the caching a lot, and that's a big part of the workflow. And once again, this is caching a little bit faster than it was before, because a lot of these little tiny isolated droplets that in a way sort of look unnatural. Because unless, you know, something is like an immediate splash, usually liquid is sort of joining together. And once again, that depends on the characteristics of the fluid. You know, do you have honey? Do you have yogurt? Do you have alcohol? You know, different fluids have different surface tensions. So this is when, you know, looking at these different settings and developing your own feel for them is how you convey what these different materials are. You know, especially like if you look at some like chocolate sauce commercial or some kind of dairy product, oftentimes they're really exaggerating the physical characteristics of the product they're trying to sell to make it more yummy and luscious. And this is where your skill as a 3D artist can really shine. All right, so let's see. We got this done. Let's check it out. Yeah, it's going a little slow because it is a bit of a complex scene. Looking nice. And now you see we don't have nearly so many of just these wild droplets all over the place. They exist for a little bit and then just go away. So we have mainly, you know, the pieces that are just these continuous droplets, whatever you want to call them. All right, let's check out some of our other kill demons. Kill speed is also nice. And also kill age too. Let's hit kill age, and I'm going to actually turn off our dish for a second. Or actually, we'll still. Let me see if I can see how that works. Let me undo the simulation. Let's see if it's still seeing the dish there. Yeah, okay, let me turn off the tag. That's what it is. Oh, enable collision. All right. And there we go. It's going right through. Okay, so let's hide this dish for a second. And we have kill age. So I'm going to turn off kill volume and kill isolated. And let's just see what our particles are doing. And once again, they seem like, oh, they're just going just in infinity. In fact, I'm going to turn off my mesher for a second, just so this goes a little faster. All right, and now you see they're stopping after a certain point. That's the kill age. Now, and once again, this is based on seconds, not frames. So here, let's make it about half of that. And we see they stop at about halfway. Now, obviously that looks a little bit too artificial. So this is when we start bringing in our variation. And see, now once we start bringing small values, and then a little less variation. Oops, no, negative variation, just small amount of this. And so here, we can, you know, if we needed a fountain or something, we can get splashing without just a massive accumulation of particles, which certainly if we had several hundred frames, that's what's going to happen if we have this stuff just pouring out. You know, think of it just like plumbing. Unless you got some kind of drainage, you got a flood. So that's what these kill daemons are really about, preventing you from having a flood. All right, let's check out our dish again. Let's turn on collisions. Yeah, let's turn our mesh on. From the beginning. And you see they're not accumulating in the dish because our kill is on. All right, so let's turn this on and then make these available. All right, so this is really the basic workflow for Realflow. So in the upcoming chapters, I'm going to go into some of the other daemons and some of the other characteristics that are not quite as straightforward. But I'm hoping you're having fun, and hold on, and we'll be back for the next chapter. All right, so we've got a basic understanding of how to set up our Realflow scene. So let's try some of these more specialized use daemons. So let's go ahead and make ourselves a little scene. So I'm going to start with a little dish here first. Let's create a cylinder. A little bit bigger. All right, something like that. Looks nice. All right, I hit C to turn it into mesh. And let's just select that top point and delete it. And there we go. We've got a dish. Let's just call this dish. And I will go and add a Realflow tag, which there is only one, collider. And let's just leave it for the default settings for now. Now we'll go into Realflow and create a circle emitter. Let's go to our top view, and we want to make our emitter just a little bit smaller than the size of our container. There we go, something like that. And let's look at it from the side here. Okay, a little bit smaller. It's a little bit above it. Now we're going to turn the speed down to 0, and under volume, we'll just kind of give it until it's just almost hitting the bottom there. So, if you go too far and go past it, it's going to have problems interacting with the collider. Let's see again. Okay, let's try and get as close. There we go. I think that should be good. Hopefully that's not too close. All right, and let's add a gravity daemon. All right, and then a mesher. And you notice is when you hit them, they just go right in the right spot. All right, and we won't see the mesher until it calculates. And let's actually shorten our scene a little bit. All right, let's give it a little play. And we can see immediately we're seeing our mesh interacting. And it's just sort of settling down there. All right, looking good. That's exactly what we want. All right, let's create a sphere. Bring that up and make it a little bit smaller, something like that. All right, and then we'll go back in the Realflow menu, get a fill emitter. And I'm going to rename this to fill. And maybe I'll call this one circle. A little easier to recognize instead of them just being called 1, 2, and 3. We'll go to our fill, and it's looking for an object to fill. So let's put our sphere here, and we'll just leave everything at its default settings. And let's make so we're not actually seeing the sphere. Turn off the traffic lights here, and let's see. We've got 2 emitters here. Let's make sure that our fluid is seeing both those. Okay, we have circle and fill. Let's look at our mesher. And this is only seeing, I'm sorry, this is it looking right? It's seeing our fluid. So let's see, as soon as we start it, it should, yeah, there we go. It's creating it. And let's watch it. It hits it and boop, sends a little bit of a shock wave, and then we kind of get a droplet up. So this is going to be the default behavior. Let's cache it and take a little quick look at what our result is like. And at this point, I've still left all my my fluid settings at their sort of low default settings, because it will solve quicker. And we'll see if it needs more resolution as we go. All right, let's give it a play. Or I'm sorry, let's cache it first. Yeah, it's going through pretty quick. Obviously, as you start adding more daemons and higher resolution, the caching process takes a little bit longer. And there we go. And it's checked this automatically. Now let's check it out. All right, so let's just do a couple things. I think once again we'll create some materials for this, just so it's a little bit easier to see things. Less fluid. And we'll make our color red, pink. then we'll add that to our mesher, because ultimately that's the only thing that's rendering. And then we'll make a copy of that. Call it dish. Oh, I misspelled that. All right. Oh, jeez. There we go. All right, and let's turn the color on this to kind of greeny blue. All right, and then this will go on our dish here. All right, let's take a quick look. All right, now one thing I'd like to talk about here is now you notice after we've cached, our liquid is sort of starting up in the air and then dropping as it's simulated, which is fine, but it's kind of a little bit unrealistic. So let's see, it's kind of about by frame 10, we're kind of seeing the water, the stuff in the dish is sort of settled. So here, let's go to our fluid, and we're going to say create initial state, and then check initial state. And now, when we go to the beginning and simulate, or I'm sorry, let's go ahead and simulate. Let's see, it's working off the previous cached simulation. So that can fool you sometimes. If you go and make changes and you don't see anything happening, make sure you're not working off your previous cached simulation, because obviously it's not going to be changed until you recache it. You know, okay, so let's check this out now. So now notice the water, we're at the beginning, and the water has already dropped to its relaxed state. I mean, obviously the ball has too, but in terms of what our animation is, this looks just fine. And now let's hit play. And that's looking real nice, Although, to tell you the truth, let's check out that water. It's kind of still jumping a little bit. I think we need to go a little bit farther. Let's go ahead and make this guy a little bit higher, so when we start with our relaxed state, it's not going to be already in the water. All right, so let's get rid of our cache, and we'll just hit play and kind of figure out what our timing is. Let's where's our sphere now? Okay, I think we have to recache it to get it to not immediately go in there. Okay, we hit there, it's chugging away. And then probably maybe something around 25, it might have settled. All right, let's check it out. Let's get a little closer. There it's hitting. I know what is also causing that sort of rising up. Let's go into our fluid. And here we have internal pressure. Let's turn that to 0. And we'll recache it. It's weird to think of water having innate pressure, but you know, different fluids have different levels of surface tension. You know, depending if you had like some water versus milk or honey or something like that. So you know, it's important to remember the characteristics of what you're trying to demonstrate here. You know, at this point, this could be lava or milk or juice. We're not quite defined it that exactly. And you see our cache is taking a little bit longer. And it's going, it's slowing down. Well, hold on. All right, so now we've got this cached, and we've got our initial state saved. So now you notice water's in our dish instead of floating around it in that sort of initial state. So let's check out what's going on. And it drops and bloop, and a little thing comes up, and that looks fine, but it's not really spectacular. It's not what we would call a crown splash. So let's add a crown splash daemon. So let's go to our daemons, and we'll add crown. And the key with the crown is not only the timing, but also the placement, because it's not going to really create too much unless you have it timed when it would be logical for a splash to happen. So first of all, let's look at the side, and want to make sure it's, you know, maybe about halfway, 2/3 the way submerged into our fluid. And let's make a nice shape for it. And for that, we go into our crown shape, and we click edit, and we can just grab some points here and just move them around. Let's go in. Actually, let's stay in this one, but we'll go into wireframe mode so we can see a little bit better. Let's hide our mesh. There we go. Let's maybe bring it a little smaller. Oops. There are points here. And I mean, you can mess around with those, with these guys if you want, but you know, generally your thing is going to be round. But that might be very different, say for instance, if you had a footprint, in which case you could just conform this to the shape of a shoe. But I think our guy is looking pretty nice now. Let's maybe make him a little bit smaller on the bottom if we can. Where's our point there? There we go. And let's see if we can get rid of that sort of square aspect if we can. All right, it's got some irregularity. And we can also maybe make some of these a little higher, some a little taller, just so it's and of course, you can just grab the lengths of each of the things. And remember, these are not approximations. It's not like a free-form deformer where you're saying, oh, it's going to be exactly the shape. But, you know, you are sculpting it. In fact, let's hit edit. So here, it's much easier to just do it by hand instead of tweaking all these dials. All right. Now we're ready to start going on. I'm going to leave the strength at its default settings, and we'll kind of run through it a little bit and see if that's going to work the nicest here. Let's back to our regular display settings. And now the creation time is not in frames; it is in seconds. So just keep that in mind. So let's say, for instance, I'd like it to. Well, for instance, let's figure out when is logical for it to happen. So we're playing this. When does that hit the surface? Let's see, probably around 5, was that? A little bit before 5. So about 4 or 5. So now remember, this is in seconds. So we have to think, okay, well, if a second is 30 frames, we want about 1/6 of that. So let's go into creation time, and instead of 1, we're going to put like 0.3 and 0.3. We'll see how that works. All right, let's give another cache. A little bit slower, but not too bad. The reason why that other simulation took a little bit long is there was some error. So while I was paused, I dealt with the error. But this cache is not taking too long, a couple seconds. All right, let's check it out. And notice it's using our initial state. So we're not waiting for all that stuff to fall. we're getting a little bloop, but I think our timing is off, and that is our main problem. So let's check out the timing and what we got going on here. So let's see. So we have it set to 1/3 of a second. So you figure that would be about 10. So maybe that's actually a little bit late. Yeah, see, I want to be hitting it at 5. So I'm going to try maybe like 1.5. Let's try that. Or 0.15, I should say. Try that again. All right, let's cache it again. All right. I could just be playing them instead of caching it, but it plays a little bit slower, and it kind of ends up taking the same amount of time. I would just rather wait for it to cache and see a nice simulation than watching it chug and then just trying to figure out in my head what it's actually going to look like when it's playing right. Because ultimately, you got to cache it anyway if you want it to play at a proper speed. All right, let's see what's going on here. Looks like our time isn't looking good, but it looks a little bit too strong. All right, let's scrub this and see what we got going. Looks great, but definitely a little bit too strong. Let's go and back into our crown, and let's see, it's at 8,000. Let's try maybe 5,000. And cache that cache. That's chugging along pretty good. And tell you the truth, we could probably even shorten our simulation time, because it seems like it's getting pretty much over by about this point. So let's see how it's looking. That's way too small now. Let's check the timing. Is the timing correct? Okay, so about 3 is when it's hitting it. I think that's probably as good as we're gonna get. All right, let's increase the strength. So it's going to be somewhere between 5 and 8. So I guess let's try 7, or maybe 6.5. All right, and we'll get another cache. Yeah, looks like it's going pretty fast. Certainly, as you have more complex solutions, sometimes you're kind of setting this up and you're going away. It might take many minutes or even hours. Oh, that's looking real nice. But you see, we've got some extra stuff coming out here. So that, I think, will be taken care of by some of, let's check out where that's coming from. Is that splashing out? Or is that actually coming out of the surface? Yeah, that's just our drips falling. So I think the way to best limit that is with our K isolated, kill isolated. And keep those settings down low, and we'll cache it one more time. Yeah, the crown is really beautiful for any kind of like a strawberry falling into milk, or the olive falling into the martini glass. It really is just that classical droplet behavior. That it's so nice that they created a specific daemon for it rather than trying to, hit it by happen chance. Yeah, that's looking real nice. And our isolated are maybe not disappearing as quickly as I would like. Try some very small value. All right, let's try this, and let me try an additional kill daemon. Let's, I think, just try our volume. It's usually the best all-rounder. And also, let me show you a way this can be used. We had them where you're kind of having it going on inside it, which is nice if you have a very specific amount. But let's see, where's my other buttons on this? I want to make sure I'm not mixing them up with the crowns. Okay, let's see. I should have an additional one somewhere. Right there. There we go. All right. And now let's hit inverse. And I'm just going to put this just right below there. Let's make sure it's big enough to capture all those strays. And it doesn't really matter how thick it is as long as it's enough to catch it. And I'm just going to put that just below the surface of our dish there. All right, and now we'll cache it again. It's going a little faster because it's not calculating all those ones that are dripping off screen. So it's important to use those kill daemons to really streamline your simulation. You don't want to be waiting around hours and hours for stuff that you're not even seeing. All right, let's check it out now. Oh, that's looking real nice. Because obviously your shot would be something like this. So you're not even really worrying about, see, I've got a little bit of something going on right there. And that would be something for the collider. Let's see what we can do. Let's go into our dish collider tag, and we'll make the resolution higher. But keep in mind, this makes the caching process a little longer. And I think I will maybe have less bounce and a little bit more sticky. All right, and let's cache it again. And that's certainly the deal with Realflow. You're kind of setting it up, and then you're slowly whittling away to try and get whatever eccentricities you have. And a lot of times, just having your camera angle set up, if you've got some weird little part that's simulating, that might be the easiest way to solve your problem. Like, see here, I'm still getting some problem with that collider. But my crown splash is looking just nice. So I hope this was useful for you, and hold on, and then we'll get ready to cover some of the other daemons involved in Realflow. All right, hold on, and we'll get ready to start the next one. All right, so let's look at a more versatile emitter. Circles and squares and a line is fine, but sometimes when you need a more complex shape, you probably just want to go into Photoshop or Body Paint and just make some customized image. So let's check out what's known as the image emitter. So we'll go into Realflow and get our start, our usual manner. Go to Image. And one nice thing is it works with a lot of the procedural maps. So let's first just kind of make one, and we'll sort of build it up. And let's look at our emitter here, and let's make that a little bit bigger. All right, we'll just drag it out. Okay, in this case, I'm making just kind of a square shape. All right, so let's select our emitter. I'm also going to create a mesher now while I'm thinking about it. All right, so let's go to our emitter, and that's where we want to put it. So create a material. Just need let's start with some simple ones, just so you can kind of see how this is working. So I'm going to go to color, and let's find surfaces and checkerboard. And let's set this up at 5 and 5. I think will give us what we need. All right, and then once we got a thumbnail, we're going to go back to our emitter, and we're dragging the thumbnail in there. So it's not like, oh, you're cutting and pasting like you would normally do with a map and a material. That's the way you put it in. And then once you got it there, you can adjust its parameters, you know, through the drop down here in the triangle. All right, so let's see how it's looking. And now our emitter is set at a certain speed. Let's turn the speed off, and I'm going to just have the volume coming out. And remember how that worked with the circle emitter? So this way we just get like sort of a static piece sitting there. And with no other gravity or anything, it's just going to sit there. And let's see, we're getting a little bit of movement from our random. Let's just have maybe just a tiniest amount of those. Let's check those out now. Looking good, looking good. And tell you the truth, even that little bit, let's try without that. Looking nice, looking nice. All right, let's try it with some other maps. And one thing to remember with a lot of maps, whether it's a bump map or a specular map, you're kind of getting values based on from black to all the different percentages of gray up to white. With this, all those percentages of gray are not seen. It's not like you're getting less particles or something. So you're really only getting particles out of the white part. So if you're using like a noise, for instance, and let's do just that. Let's get noise. And I want to find one that's pretty high contrast, because as I said, it is the white parts that we're really going to be seeing. And here's a nice one. And I'm going to adjust these parameters. So let's bring the scale up pretty good. Maybe even a little bit more than that. And a little bit more contrast. And now let's apply that. And we'll see how that's looking, and if necessary, we'll continue to tweak it. All right, looking good. And especially, if you're doing something that doesn't necessarily require animation, and you just want to get just some drips flying around, this can really be your friend. Because here we go, it's like, sure, you can simulate it, but it doesn't need it. It doesn't need it. You don't have to, have this going for a couple of frames before you got something going on. So I think that can be a pretty powerful tool. And then, of course, from here you can always have additional effects changing it. Like, I don't know, let's try a noise demon. Where are these guys hiding? There we go, noise field. Alright, and let's just give it a quick simulation. And I don't even think I'm going to let it simulate all the way. Just check it out. You know, something like that might be all you need for just a quick dissolve. And let's go into a couple more other nice uses of some maps here. So let's go into our material here, and let's swap out noise for going to effects and choose spline. And for now, let's turn off our noise field. And let's see, we're getting some kind of error here, so let's just clear that first. And then we'll find, or is it effects, spline. All right, and what this is to create some lettering. So let's go ahead and drag our thumbnail where it needs to be. Go into our emitter. Drag the thumbnail, and then let's make something. So here, let's call this melt. And then let's make so we can see this a little bit better. And I'm going to leave the font, but let's see what we got here. Well, it's taking a while. I got a bunch of fonts loaded up. Yeah, there we go. Let's try to find something kind of dense. All right, so let's go to our line width, make that thin, and let's go to line texture, and we'll put just color, and white is good, and then hit fill. That's what we want. And let's make sure that line width is pretty thin. Looking good. All right. And now let's make it smaller. Let's see, where's our size? Let's see, there we go, height. That's what I'm looking for. Let's try and make it so it's nicely fitting in there, and then a little bit higher. Try a Y. Oop, try the other way. And you just want to try and center it in that that little thumbnail as much as possible. And tell you the truth, I think we're going to have to make it a little smaller. Let's see, where's height again? There we go. Okay, and then let's make a little bit of space. Maybe not quite that much. All right, that's looking good. All right, so it's pretty much right in the middle. All right, let's move just a smidge. All right, and I think a little bit more space, because remember, since this is liquid, we don't want them kind of melted together too much. All right, and then where's this offset? Okay, I think we have what we want here. All right, so let's go into our emitter, and all right, that's looking good. Let's see. Let's get rid of our cache. I think that's what's doing it. Yes. Looks like somehow our spacing is not. There we go. And I think we need to flip our emitter. degrees. And give it a little. All right, and now I think it needs. Let's see. Let's go into our not our emitter, but our fluids, and we'll give a little bit higher resolution. Let's try maybe 5, and just kind of give it a little quick nudge and play it just for a second. Yeah, now that's looking a lot closer to our font. But keep in mind, this is a fluid simulation, so you don't want it looking like it's just an extrude off of a spline. So that's why I didn't pick some very elaborate lettering style. But here, let's have a little bit more oomph in our letters here. Well, maybe not quite that much oomph. Something like 30, 45. All right, looking good. All right. All right, so our letters are looking nice, but now we want to do something that's kind of liquidy, because obviously this is a fluid simulation. So let's make a little floor. I'm just going to choose a disc in this case. And just put it down a little bit below where our letters are, and big enough so it'll catch it all. Good. All right, a little bit of space, not too much. All right, and we'll add a Realflow collider tag. Find Realflow, it's the only one. And make sure to give a little bit of sticky, a little bit of friction. Don't worry about the bounce, and everything else should be just fine. And now let's go look at our material, and let's just give it a. We won't even bother to cache. Just hit it and see what happens. Ah, nothing, because we need gravity. Let's go gravity, and just leave it as default, and go ahead and play. And now we see we're melting a little bit. All right, that's looking nice. Let's see. We finish up by about 50. So I think I'm going to make my scene shorter, just so it's a little quicker to cache this, so we can see what we're doing a little bit easier. And also, let's mess around with our fluid a little bit more. So let's maybe turn viscosity up to like 10, maybe even 15. And I'm going to make the density a little bit greater too. All right, and now let's give it a cache. Sometimes it's good just to get your timing with a longer time, and then once you see how much time you really need to simulate, because in this half the simulation was just the drops, just sort of finding their space. Yeah, there you go. There's our nice little melty puddle of butter. Looking good, looking good, looking good. Got a nice viscous look. Let's check it out with maybe a material. Let's check out something that might be viscous. Let's go to our library of material presets. Let's go to visualize. Let's try, let's see what we got. Liquid, tea, orange juice, coffee, milk. Let's see if we got something else like maybe chocolate or butter. Let's see, we have food here. Let's see, what about plastic? Let's try this plastic. And remember, the part that's getting rendered is the mesher. So any materials you put on here, that's where they go. All right, let's do a quick little render preview, and let's check that out. Oops, let me set up our render time a little bit. Yeah, hold on. Let's make sure we're getting the whole thing. All right. Yeah, this is just a preview. And hold on, we'll let this do its thing. All right, there we go. There's our render. And I add a little bit of ambient occlusion just so we can kind of see the details a little bit. Looking good here. Let's scrub it a little bit. And we can see as it starts making contact with the floor, it's blopping out and then blending together. And then the effects of the momentum are happening. We get a little bit of a dent, and then it all just kind of turns into a melty mess. And since we cranked up our viscosity on our fluid and our material has a bit of stickiness, it's acting more like chocolate or butter or some kind of melted plastic rather than milk or water or some thinner fluid. So that's the way in which you're really developing the characteristics of your fluid, is the physical characteristics and then also adding enough particles and density for it to look natural and not just look like a bunch of little points. All right, I hope you found this useful. Hold on, and we'll get ready to examine some more tools in Realflow. All right, so let's check out some different ways that we can use splines as a means of creating our Realflow simulations. So let's go ahead and we'll take our pen tool. I'm just going to go in our front view here. Let's maybe make something like that. And, you know, actually, I think I'll do it a little bit simpler. Let's, my pen tool, I think I'll just use an Akima type. There we go. Yeah, that's just what I want. All right, and now let's just kind of make it a little bit more three-dimensional, so it's not just 2D situation. All right, so that's good enough. And just imagine this is like the bill of a hat, or maybe like the edge of teeth or something. So let's create our Realflow situation. We'll take our spline emitter, and let's also add a mesher to that. And let's just see what this does. So we'll go in and find our emitter, and it's looking for a spline object. We split our spline there. And now, see, we've got some little gadgets, gizmos on there. And so that's what we're going to hear. Let's turn off the mesher for a little bit. And so that's what we're getting. It's kind of coming out of the normal of the spline. And for now, let's give ourselves a little bit more time. All right, so let's add a gravity daemon. And let's check it out now. And now we're getting more of just a regular, just sort of drip. Let's go to our emitter. And I'm going to really turn that speed down. And just a tiny bit of randomness, just so it doesn't look like just those little waves coming out. Yeah, so it just looks like kind of a little bit more natural looking. All right, and let's go ahead and do something to limit the amount of particles, because you can see they just keeps on just an endless amount. So let's go in and create a kill age, K-age, and let's see what the let's bring it to maybe half a second. Let's see how that's doing. Okay, and we can just see it getting longer. Looking good. And maybe a little bit shorter, and then a little bit of random. Yeah, okay, maybe not quite that much random. Looking good, looking good. All right, so now let's go ahead and turn our mesher on, and let's see what we're getting at this point. And let's just go ahead and just stop it, and let's see if we can get our mesh to be behave a little bit better. Let's go in here, make our radius just a little bit bigger, and let's hit auto build so we see what's going on. Maybe not quite that big. Something like that. Maybe a little bit of smooth. I think just one. A little bit of thinning. And some relax. Alright, let's check it out. All right, this might be as much as you need, but let's try and experiment a little bit and try some different looks here. Let's try using a drag. Now let's check it out. It's kind of moving a little bit thicker and more syrupy. All right, let's check it out with a sheeter. And with the sheeter, you really have to kind of be careful because it can create quite a few particles. But this gives a nice sort of look. This is kind of more what I was looking for. And let's see if we can actually increase our minimum cavity size. And I think I will use age. And maybe something like that. And this will go even shorter. Let's try this. Yeah, now we're getting some nice drips like it's paint or something really gooey. So, you know, the sheeter is a very strong tool, but it can also create an overwhelming amount of particles. So, really try to experiment with these, and ultimately you're trying to create particles in between particles to create these areas versus just a zillion little droplets. But you want to keep it from creating so much that it just crashes your scene. So yeah, so this could be very helpful if you needed to just have, like, say, a monster drooling, or just some rain dripping off the edge of a hat, or maybe rain dripping off of a power line. But what I'd like to show next is how to make your fluids actually travel along the spline. And for that, we'll not be using the spline emitter. So let's go ahead, and I'm just gonna make a completely different scene here. I'm just gonna hit Control N, and we'll just kind of start from go. So let's go into our front viewport, and once again we're gonna draw, but this time I think I'm gonna use this sketch, and let's just make some crazy wiggly line. And that's fine. And then we'll go in with our smoother and kind of make it a little bit nicer. Let's turn the strengths down a little bit. I can control it a bit more. Alright, I'm just trying to take out any weird little spikes just so it's a smooth flow. Alright, looking good. And now let's kind of make it also not just plain 3D. So okay, I'm going into point mode, and let's see. Right click, and let's use our magnet. And once again, I'm going to turn my strength down to 1/3 or something like that. And I'm just going to go and just sort of push it around a little bit. And sometimes it can even be helpful to just select certain parts so you're not accidentally hitting things you don't want. And I'm going to get my magnet again. And let's see, let's turn that strength up to maybe 50%. And I'll just sort of move things around a little bit. And you notice it's only affecting the ones that are selected. Alright, and I'll also smooth a little bit from this angle. Alright, and now let's select some of these guys in the front. If you don't have any selected, everything is affected by whatever tool you're using. But sometimes it's nice to be able to just affect certain things. All right, and then a little bit of smooth. All right, and that's just kind of move this one a little bit over here. All right, looking good. And let's try to smooth this turn right there. And this time I'm going to just select nothing. All right, looking good enough. Just sort of random wiggly line. All right, so now we're going to create our Realflow situation. So let's just create a circle emitter. And we're going to try to position it right at the beginning of our line. So let's grab our emitter. And obviously we want it to be pointing towards the beginning of the line, not away from it. All right, let's see. All right, that's looking pretty good. Let's see if we can get right onto that point. I could use snap, but I think I can get it pretty close. All right. Looking good. Okay, now let's go into Realflow and create a D-spline daemon. And that's what we'll be creating our kind of like a path to form like behavior. Okay, so let's go into our D-spline, and it's going to be looking for the spline it wants us to use. All right, and now all of a sudden we have these gizmos here. So that those are our control points in here. We have a list of the first one, and then we can go through them. But let's first make some general changes, and then we can fine-tune each of our little control points. All right, so let's give a hit and see what it's doing. And it looks like it's just sailing out of control and not really even being affected at all. All right, so let's look at our main controls here. So we have vortex strength, which is how much it's spiraling around the path that it's following. Axial strength, so now we see it's this sort of cylinder of cone. So axial strength is referring to how strongly it's drawn to this axis, which, let's say our scribbled spline is our axis for this. So with a greater strength, it's being pinched, and with less strength, it's sort of flying off into the distance. Now, radial strength is how much it is being pulled to this next little helper item. So obviously, at this point, this one is the one that's obviously deficient. So let's turn it up just a little bit. I'm going to turn it up to like 3 or 4, and let's give it a try now and see what it's looking like. A little better, but still not doing exactly what we want. Let's give it a little bit more strength. And now it is behaving a lot better. But what's going on? It's holding, but I think we need more control points. Because what happens, it really has to make it to these little gates, or it doesn't do it. So let's go ahead. So okay, so this is where we are now, and we're going to add one. And let's try that. Let's see if that was enough to make our situation work. All right, that was looking good, but tell you the truth, we're still kind of losing it a little bit. Let's see if we can really get them to hold on tight. All right, looks like we need another one. Let's add one, and we will bring it a little bit forward. Something like that. There. Whoa. And it looks like we need to bring this one a little closer, because you see when it's shooting, it's almost missing our little thing. So one thing we can also do is we can increase its radius, and I can use either the slider here, or I can even just go into oops, I can just go into the ones that I have. Let me see. Let me not be in this mode. There we go. I can make that a little bit better, and then it catches it a little bit better. Yeah, let's see. And it looks like we definitely need some more time to see this go all the way through. Oops, I didn't do it right. Let's try again. All right, let's see how this is working now. It's going, and yeah, making a wide curve, but it's making that next one. Okay, it looks like we need another one over here. So if we just say add, it's probably going to add it between this space right here. So we need to go beyond this next one. And so here I can either just go next, or I could just click on it. You know. All right, I'm going next, and then let's make him a little bit bigger just so it doesn't get lost. And then add. Okay, let's try this. Okay, we're losing it. Looks like we need yet another one. All right. So let's see where is it getting lost? Let's hit it again. It's coming up. Oh, that kink in that turn is way too tight for it. All right, so let's make another one of these guys. Here we'll go previous, and then add, and it'll put it right in the middle. Now let's see how that's working. Oh yeah, it's making that nice tight turn, but not making it all the way around. So let's see if we can maybe push it a little bit forward. Let's see, this is the one we want. Okay, and we'll go offset. Let's see if that's enough. See, this is what I was trying to get out. This is a sort of a tight kink. That's why I was trying to use the smooth to get rid of that as much as I could. All right, are we making it? Let's see if it makes this tight turn. All right, we're kind of missing that turn. Let's see if we can bring this one down a little bit. Or we could just use this. Next. Bring it. Yeah, before the sort of the pinch, and then maybe a little bit bigger too. All right, let's hit it now. All right. So let's now we can start to go into these guys, and it looks like we're still needing some more radial strength, but I'm going to start putting them on in the right in the ones where we're using them. Okay, let's try about 300. Let's back and give it a shot. Because remember, these changes you're making to these individual ones are relative to your global changes. And I think I need to turn this down. It's being a little bit much. It's making it follow, but I'm kind of getting this in a little bit too much. All right. So let's go to the next one. And let's see, is he catching that? That one probably also needs to be a little bit bigger. And maybe a little closer. Let's try it now. All right. Let's see how, or let's see if we can go previous. Add a little bit more radial to it. Let's see what's going on now. All right, you know, I think this one actually needs to be a little bit closer or bigger or something. Bigger, a little bit closer. Well, we might not need one there because it's kind of a smooth transition. Let's check it out. All right. Well, let's see. It looks like we maybe need an additional one there. Let's see if that's doing the trick. All right. To tell you the truth, I might have my spiral a little bit too convoluted here. Okay, let's make this point a little bit bigger. I think I'm just going to use these guys to help me. I think this one could be a little bigger too. Oops. All right, I think I'm going to maybe delete some points on this spline. It's getting a little bit long. Let me just go to my spline, and I'm going to delete a couple of these points here. All right, let's check it out now. All right, let's see. We're losing it on this one. Oops. Let's try that one. Make it a little bigger. Oh, I know. This kink is just a little bit too much. I'm gonna go into that spline and smooth that out. This is really causing us a lot of problems here. All right, let's run it again. Looking good. I think we need maybe another one right there. All right, and make that guy a little bigger. Oops, I need this one. Can't do that in the point mode. You have to be in object mode. All right. All right, this is getting a nice look now. Let's engage our mesher, and now I guess we got to add one. All right, so now we've got a nice motion to it, but you know, we don't want just a snake, you know, going through that. That's not, you know, really worthy of a fluid simulation. We want a little bit of jiggles and some irregularity, something that looks like some liquid. So let's go back into our D-spline, and let's add some more vortex strength. I'm going to turn this up to maybe 3, and let's go ahead and cache it. And it's caching pretty fast because we're not creating too many particles, although I have a feeling we should use kill isolated, because you can see at the corners where you're getting some of that spray, you know, you don't want that just to be infinite. All right, this is caching pretty quick. And then we'll get a little bit more natural movement. We'll be chugging. But this can be a nice effect. Probably TV you've seen like, a bottle of soda, and then the soda's sort of flying around the bottle and squirting out of the top, and then splashed on some fruit or something. This is exactly how you would do that. And then just use some nice transparent material. And in one of the following chapters, I'm going to go in more depth into some of the unique material and rendering situations you'll be using for Realflow, like transparency and caustics and that kind of stuff. All right, let's check it out. It's looking really nice. Come on. Let's see it again. Well, let's see. God, for some reason, that's starting to chug. Yeah, I think we need to set up the kill. I think it's making too many particles. All right, let's create kill age, and I think we will also create a kill volume. Because in this case, we really only need to see our spiral. We don't need to see that stuff that's flying way out. All right. And let's just sort of encapsulate our scene here. Something like that. Sometimes it's hard to differentiate if everything is sort of got these red and orange lines. Just get as close as you can. And remember, you can always just scale it. It doesn't affect the way these things work. See? Yeah, I can just do that if I want. Oh, yeah. Well, except it looks like it doesn't like to scale non-uniformly. All right. All right, I think that's enough to get most of the other stuff that we don't want. All right. Okay, let's cache it. And you can see now our cache is going much faster, because we're ignoring all these extra particles that were being made. All right. See, our kill particle is way too fast. So kill age, definitely add some variation. Maybe not too much more, a little bit more. All right, let's actually turn off the mesher while we're adjusting this, and I'm going to kill our cache for now. Oops, I'll just remove cache. All right, let's hit it and make sure that it is able to make it through the whole simulation before dying. All right, so it looks like it probably needs a little bit more. What do I have to do? Getting close, maybe 3 or 4. And I think this is actually looking nice at this point. Yeah, that's looking pretty nice. So let's let it kind of get all the way through, and then we'll add our mesher. And let's see. Let's build our mesh. That's looking pretty nice. That's looking pretty nice. Let's see if we can maybe add a little bit more vortex. Make it really twisty. Let's give it another cache. Yeah, setting up the limitations on the amount of particles you're creating is really an important part of the workflow, or else if you just make just zillions and zillions of particles that you're not even seeing, you'll just crash your computer, and it'll just be very slow to develop your looks, because you can see each time you're kind of tweaking, you have to cache to really see it properly. So, if it takes a half an hour or an hour each time you're caching it, you're just not going to get anything done. All right, this guy's almost done. And I can tell as it's going farther, the calculations are taking a little bit longer because there's more particles. But often, if you're doing a really complex scene, You know, there's nothing wrong with just leaving it. Okay, it looks like it's exploding. Let's see what went wrong. Yeah, that the vortex is way too strong. Okay, let's go back to despline, and let's try 6. All right. And, you know, maybe before we actually cache it, let's just kind of just give it a little play. And if it's just flying out of control, then yeah, we know that's definitely not it. So here I'm going to remove the cache. And let's go back to our, yeah, it's completely losing it. Let's go back to a relatively smaller value, something just a little bit more than 3. All right, let's try it now. There we go. That's looking a lot nicer. We want enough so we see these, you know, these drips and drops and, you know, more liquidy characteristics. But if we have too much, it just breaks up and flies away. And I think we're having that right here too. So let's maybe go in and let's see if we can do a little bit more. Let's have this have a little bit more radial pull. Yeah, there we go. Kind of keeping it from just flying away. All right, let's do one more cache, and I think we've really nailed it at this point. It's calculating fast, and we're confident that we have a good look, having done a bunch of test runs. Now, at this point, if we're reasonably certain that our look is looking good, now would be the time to add a higher resolution. And let's wait a second, see how this is going. Yeah, sometimes it chugs. But to tell you the truth, I mean, this actually calculates pretty fast, you know, compared to the way, you know, some things used to take. It's just, man, I remember caustics, it would wait like 15 hours for a single still image. So, yeah, that's looking really sweet. Really liking the way that's looking. Very controllable, but also just super organic. All right. Yeah. All right. So I hope this is helpful, and keep in touch, and then we'll start on the next one. All right, so let's look at some different material and rendering approaches to take with Realflow. So let's set up a quick scene here. Get a little floor surface. Add our collider tag to it. And I'm going to keep that high, or maybe medium high, so we get relatively accurate results. And let's set up a little quick Realflow scene. Have a circle emitter. Something like that. And then let's make our plane have a little bit more shape to it. Let's add a displacer to it. Let's make sure we can see our image good. And let's put a gradient in there. And change the gradient to circular. Let's kind of look from the side. There we go. We got a nice little bowl. All right. And then I'd also like to create a little block, just so we have some little bit of turbulence. That thing is the fluid is simulating. All right. And let's add a another tag on here. Collider tag. Oops. This one is such a simple shape. I'm gonna leave it as it is. All right, and let's see, get a mesher going. All right, because it's the mesher that is going to create what I would like to show you first. So here, let's let it play a little bit. No, I think we need some gravity too. There we go. Let's give it a quick go. let's just give this a quick simulation, and then we'll fine tune the mesher a little bit. Let's see, how's that? I'll leave it just as is for now. And let's give it a quick cache. This is a pretty quick scene, so it caches pretty quick. And let's see what we got. All right, spilling off. You know, I'm going to put also a kill isolate, or a kill volume, so we can avoid having some of these excessive particles that we're not really going to need. Okay, let's look at this in this view. I don't really want to extend too much past the dish. There we go. All right, now let's simulate this again. You can see it's going a little bit faster because it stops calculating the ones outside of our volume. All right. Okay, let's take a quick look and see what we got here. And it looks like we could probably make this the characteristics a little bit nicer. Kind of got way too much momentum. All right, let's look at our dish here. Just a tiny bit of friction will really solve that. Let's try it again. And usually you try to fine tune it to like 95% at a relatively low resolution. Then you're cranking up the resolution because then the simulation times also. Okay, this is looking nice. All right, let's see what we got. And it's pouring. And tell you the truth, that's actually even a little bit too much friction. That's kind of looking more like chocolate sauce than water. So let's find where my dish is, and let's see, we got friction 0.6. Let's bring it down to 0.2 or 3, or 0.023. All right, let's simulate. So I want to see some splashing kind of going up here. I mean, that was the point of putting this box here. All right, let's see how that's looking. Yeah, a little bit. I think I just need to make our emitter a little bit more powerful. Let's crank up the speed a little bit more random. Let's give another simulation. There we go. Now, one thing to remember with these cached simulations, you're kind of always using this temporary name and temporary thing. So if you've got multiple scenes going on, you might open it and find like, well, what is this unexpected behavior? And you might actually be using the cache from some previous scene or another scene. So if you end up with some unusual results, consider that. So, you know, you might just have to remove the cache and start again with whatever your fresh scene is. All right, I've got some of that splash going on. So let me find the frame where we've got that going on nicely. Yeah, there we go. That's kind of what I'm looking for there. And now let's adjust our mesh properties a little bit. And first smoothing, some thinning, and let's put on auto build so we see our changes. Yeah, that's looking nice. And what's nice with our cache simulation, we can just scrub it and see what it's looking like. And let's see if we can get some relax going, get a little bit less of that there. Yeah, that's looking nice. A little bit more smooth. Yeah, let's scrub it here. Yeah, right, like that. That's what I'm looking for. And let's see, I might even increase. Yeah, there we go. Just enough so we don't have so much of those individual little blobs. Yeah, that's nice. All right, so now after I've simulated, now notice I've got these 3 vertex tags. Let's actually go in here and under channels, and that's what these are. They're let's set up a simple shader, and we can kind of demonstrate what's that's actually creating. So I'm going to create a new material, and I'm going to turn everything off except luminance, just so this is a little bit easier to see. And I'm going to go under Effects and Vertex Map, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to this will interpret these different vertex map tags. So let's look at each one. This is velocity X or velocity Z. Let's make this a little smaller. Thing is, you won't see this in your viewport. And tell you the truth, even the interactive render region has difficulty with the Realflow mesh unless it were like turned to collapsed mesh or used a connect object. So what I would suggest for your temporary renders is you can just hit Control R and render in your we got to actually apply that material. Just Control R to render in your viewport. Now you can see what's going on with okay, first of all, let me explain what the vertex map shader is doing. It's taking your vertex map values and turning them into gray values. So 100% is white, and 0% is black, and 50% is a 50% gray. And this these sliders here are representing the scale of how your map is interpreted over whatever the volume of your mesher is. And to tell you the truth, it's kind of an arbitrary setting, and most of the time I end up using some pretty low settings, usually less than a quarter of, like 0.1 or 0.2 at the most. But it really just depends on what your needs are. So let's take a look and see what this is doing. And I'm going to actually render this out in the picture viewer. It's a little bit easier to see, in my opinion. Takes a little bit longer, but it should be a little bit better thing. There we go. So now we see it's kind of trying to interpret across the Z axis, and that's why it's using the vertex map tag is called Z, because that's what it's calculating. So now you see this could be used either, obviously you could use a different color. You could have it like going red to blue, or this could be used as a channel to blend between 2 other types of shaders, using like a fusion shader or a layer shader or something like that. But let's close this and take a look at some of the other vertex maps and the effects of those. Okay, let's open up our shader here. See, it's saying velocity Z. Let's go to the next one. This is velocity Y. And close that. All right, let's. I'll just render it in the viewport. Oops, did I hit the right one? Let me try again. See, now we got our gradation going this way, but we always end up with a couple little odd ones here and there that are what can really give it nice watery characteristics. Say, for instance, if your ocean material, you had one which was just sort of like clear, translucent, watery color, but you also had like a foam color where stuff is smashing up on a rock or the wake of a boat or something like that. All right, let's check out our material and check out our other tag here. We've got velocity Y. I guess velocity X is the one left. Let's do a quick render. And now this, the scale is somehow not working right with the. Let's try a different view and see if we're even seeing this. Let's check it one more time. See, there's just a little tiny bit of black there. So now, before we start going adjusting these values, let's check out one other possibility that the mesher gives us. We can check speed, and it creates a fourth a vertex map tag that is sort of a combination of all three, and is sort of creating like a velocity, a shader based on velocity. But it really is just sort of a mixture of these guys. But let's check out what that one looks like. Because to tell you the truth, this is the one I really end up using more than either of the velocity X or Y's. I'm not saying there won't be circumstances, but it just tends to look the most organic, and I just find myself using this one more. All right, so let's go and do a quick render here. And now we got to change the scale. See, I was just getting a tiny little bit of gray there. So here, I'm going to go here under channels. I'm going to bring this down, you know, pretty low. Here, let's try something like that. Control R. See, now I'm starting to get these finer gray values. I'm gonna bring it even smaller. Try just like 0.1 or something like that. See, now I'm starting to get something I would actually use. Let's even try something tiny. Try maybe 0.05. And this is, you know, depending on the scale of your scene. So, I mean, if you're just doing a puddle versus an ocean, you know, you're going to be using vastly different scales. So there really is no just rule of thumb that's going to, you know, help you out. It's just a matter of doing these quick little test renders, and I would suggest using the luminance channel because it'll just render very fast. And let's take a look at some scenes that I've used this. I can kind of show you ones I've pre-made a little bit quicker than just constructing them off the bat. So just hold on a sec. All right, here's a scene where I just have two emitters kind of blobbing down into in a puddle, and it's just a single fluid simulation. And ultimately, it's just a single mesher with a single material. But let's give it a quick render. Let's see what I do there. There we go. But we can sort of give the illusion of these paint sort of mixing together. Let's take a look at the shader and what I got going on here. And here I've got it in the color channel. So now look, let's go into here. I've got the colorizer, but this is where my vertex map shader is that has velocity X. See, now here's an example of where I'm not using speed. I'm using velocity X because I just wanted to look like I had one bottle of blue paint, one bottle of yellow paint, and then where they were hitting, there was sort of some little blendy green parts. So here, I wanted that sort of like very direct, you know, just on a single axis sort of transition rather than that more natural transition that the speed vertex map gives you. So let's go back into here, and that is just creating a black and white value. And then when you put it inside the colorizer shader, that's when you're giving these color values to your different gray values. Kind of similar to the behavior in Photoshop. I think colorized map, or you can or gradient map, whatever they call it. And you can just take a black and gray map and then apply whatever colors you wanted to that gradient. And so now this, you know, depending on, like, maybe I wanted like more green out here, you know, I could shift these values around in addition to changing, let's see, I think I'm using X. So in addition to changing this value, I can also slide these things around to get the values I would like. So here, let's just do a quick one in the picture viewer, and then we'll change some of these values, and you can see what the differences would be. So let's see, Shift R, and let's see. I think this might be set for animation. Let me see what I've got here. Let's try correct frame. Yeah, it shouldn't take that long. So it's not that complex of a scene. You know, it's going kind of slow. I wonder if perhaps it is not cached, and that is giving me some slowness issues. I think that is the case. Let's recache it and see what we can do. So I think it is perhaps using the cache from that other scene that I was just showing you. So here, let's just. Because what will happen is it's trying to recache everything up to that frame. So here, let's just do another quick. Yeah, looking good. Looking good. So we see what's nice is we have our just primary colors on our two streams of paint, and we're not having any mixing until we get to the puddle. So depending on how you're changing those gradations, you know, you might have some of the gradation traveling up into the flow, which, you know, would not make sense for what you're trying to do. So here, let's close this and let's change a couple values. All right. So first of all, I'm going to go into our thing and let's see, what are we using? We're using velocity X. Velocity X. Okay. Let's go to our mesher and we'll look at X, and it's around 77. Bring that a little bit lower to maybe like 0.5 or something. All right. And well, let's check that out with it before we make any additional changes. See, now what's happening is we're creeping up into that. Now this is no longer a solid blue, like here, see? So I think maybe we changed that too much. Let's go back to maybe 6 or 0.6. Try it again. There we go. And let's check out the difference between the one we just did. See, we're starting to get a little bit more diffusion than we had in this one. Now let's change some other values. Let's go into our this guy right here, and let's see. Maybe we want to see a bit more green. So let's see if we can kind of bring that influence out into our gradation a little bit more. Then we'll hit render again. See, we're getting a little bit of movement up there. Let's once again go into here. Let's bring that maybe 6.65. Let's try it again. Yeah, that's looking nicer. Now we got a little bit more diffusion. Yeah, now that's looking like it's actually blending together. So, you know, by fudging around, you can get some, you know, really look like it's diffusing. And certainly if you bring a couple more colors into the gradient. All right, hold on, and we'll go over some other rendering and material strategies. All right, so let's explore some more material possibilities with Realflow. So I got a little simulation going on here. So it's not too complex. I just have a fill emitter using the sphere as my object to fill it, and then I've just got a noise field. I don't have any gravity or anything, and then just a kill isolated just to prevent too many separate particles. And then I've already simulated it. So let's scrub it and let's check out, see what kind of frame. I don't know if I want to use it when it's too exploded. Let's find when it's just sort of partially. So that's what's kind of nice when we got it cached. We can sort of zoom in on whichever one we want to. Yeah, there we go. So we got a couple little isolated drops, but we've got a couple more tendrils, maybe a little bit earlier in it. All right. So let's try and make just a liquid material just from scratch. So I'm going to actually make two materials, one for the material, and then one to light the scene. So let's create one. We'll put on the mesher. Let's call this one fluid. All right. And now we're going to turn on transparency and turn off color. So this is all we're going to have is transparency and reflectance. And let's just, well, we're going to adjust it more, but let's create a couple more things in our scene here. And let's start off by creating a new material. This is going to be for our image lighting. And go in here and just have everything but luminance turned off. And we'll call this sky. All right, let's go into our content browser and go into presets. And I'm going to go into visualize, presets, light setups, HDRI. I'm just using any one of these are nice. You don't necessarily have to use this particular HDRI setting, but here, park looks nice. Let's try maybe one with a little bit more contrast. Here, let's make this larger so we can see these a little bit better. Kind of like this one. All right. Takes a second. All right. And now let's go back to objects and let's add a sky object. And now we will apply this material to the sky. All right. And now I want to select the sky object and let's put a compositing tag on it. And just turn off scene by camera and leave all the rays and GI and all that stuff. Okay, so now let's I think let's create a camera. There we go. And let's go into our render settings. And first of all, let's give it a nice output. Sound decent. And let's add global illumination. And for now, we want our results relatively quick. So let's go into our presets and we'll just try either object visualization preview or exterior HDRI would have been fine, but this should be just fine. And now let's give a quick render and let's see how this is looking. Yeah, it takes a little bit of time, but it shouldn't be too long. And remember, it's important to cache your simulation first, or it's going to try and simulate everything up to that point. So in this case, our simulation it took 10 seconds or something to do the scene. But if you've got a complex scene, it might be something you're leaving overnight. So it will definitely speed up your render. All right, let's see how it's coming out. All right, definitely needs a little bit more TLC here. All right, so let's look at our fluid material. And I'm going to look at my reflectance. And let's add a Beckman. And just straight, it's usually a little bit too reflective, but let's just check out what it looks like, and let's go into our transparency, and definitely need some refraction. Let's maybe turn this up to 2, and I will also turn on additive, and also a little bit of absorption color, maybe just a light blue or something. And I'll leave the absorption distance. This is very render expensive. I would not touch this unless you really need to. Each percentage of this can double your render time. So it can look nice if you have if your refraction artifacts are a little bit too busy, but keep in mind it definitely cranks up the render time. All right, so let's check out what we've got now and see what this is looking so far. You can see in our little preview here, it's looking a lot nicer than our first render. So here, let's give it a go. And it'll take a little bit more time. It's calculating a couple more things. And let's take a look at some of our previous renders. And so, here I'm kind of explaining motion blur. We'll get to that in a second. All right, how's this calculating our radiance cache? And now already I'm liking the results here. Yeah, the ray tracing with the complex shapes that the Realflow creates is it's just a really sweet combination. And this is looking nice, but you can see, you know, you're having the HDRI bouncing around through this ray trace, what do you call it, the refraction, can make for some sort of busy images. So depending on the HDRI you choose, and also let's we'll let this render out, but then we'll go back into the materials and it'll show you some ways we can tune that down a little bit. But I'm actually really liking the way this is looking. It's looking really hot. All right. Yeah, see, we're getting some really really nice bounces in here. And well, let's just hold on, let this render for a second. All right, so this is looking nice, but you know, it's a little bit busy. We want to kind of tone it down a little bit. So let's go into our material here, and let's go under layer color. Look under layer Fresnel, and yeah, maybe something like that. Yeah, I think maybe a little less hot. And then you can pick some sort of material. Let's say glass. There we go. And just less than that. All right, let's do another quick test render and see how it's looking. And here, I'll save you guys from waiting for it. All right, let's check it out. All right, we got some nice both reflection and refraction going on. Check it out. Yeah, that's a beautiful. Look at all this stuff, making really nice work of our HDRI. And remember, it's pretty busy. It's got all those clouds and stuff in it. So for something like this, it really shows the power of the refraction. All right, so now let's look at some slightly different material strategies. Let's turn this off. Let's make a different material here. And just create new material, and let's look at this, and I'm going to turn off reflectance and color, and just turn on luminance, and just call this SS for subsurface scattering, or SSS. All right, now let's replace our glass material here. And now let's go back and then change a couple little lighting and rendering options. Let's get rid of this skylight. Doesn't really help that much with the subsurface scattering. And let's create a light. Let's create a spotlight, and then we'll put that inside a cloner. And let's go into our cloner. And let's turn it to radial, and let's make it so it sort of wraps around. Okay, and let's make this go the way we want. Transform, and let's see, is this the one we want? Yeah. Let's make it facing inward, and then the radius, so our lights are facing in. And let's see where our lights are. Raise our cloner up, and I mainly want just lights in the back. So let's look at our cloner, and let's see. Let's go here, and just move them however it needs to be. So we just have them in the back, something like that. That should be fine. And now let's look into the light characteristics. Not too big of a cone, and some inner cone there, and make sure that they're cranked up pretty good. All right, and now let's go back to our nice camera position, and let's look at our material. So we got luminance. Go here. We'll go effect, subsurface scattering, and For now, let's leave this in normal, but that's an option that we can change depending on kind of how hot we want the effect to be. All right, let's go in here, and I'm just going to give this kind of a light color, just a very light pale blue, aqua. And this is a pretty important for subsurface scattering. For those of you who've used subsurface scattering, and really the simplest way to sort of calculate it, is just create like something like a sphere or something in your scene, and we'll see. Okay, what is the radius of this sphere? So this is about 100. So let's look about the size of those droplets. Let's see. Okay, something like that. So it's at about 20, about 11. All right. So I probably don't want my my distance in my subsurface scattering, my scatter distance, to really be too much more than the size of these droplets. But let's check it out. We've got it at 10 millimeters, 10 centimeters now. Let's see how this is looking at this point. And let's do some decent size render too. Let's see. Okay, looking good. And it'll depend on the angle of the light comparable to the camera. All right, I'll let you guys spare the rendering part. All right, here we go. So now we can really see our subsurface scattering going on here. You know, it's got a consistency like maybe wax or marble or something, but it seems some kind of longer diffusion distance. But you know, depending on what you need, this would be perfect for like a splashed candle or something. But let's try it with some other things going on here. So let's take a look at our subsurface scattering, and I'm going to turn this down, and I'm also going to go in here into shader. I'm going to put a gradient, and let's look at this gradient. Something like that. Some green. Yeah, there we go. All right, there we go. Now let's maybe a little bit of turbulence. Okay. All right. Let's give it a render. And I turned off the global illumination, so it's going a little bit faster. And now we can see near the light sources, we're getting the influence from that gradient. The slight bit of purple, and then this a lighter green that's coming from that gradient. And depending on how much turbulence you have in it, you know, you can make it look like there's like sort of stuff floating in the wax or something. All right, let's give it another shot. Let's maybe make this more blue. And I'm going to go back up in here. And let's make this color a little bit greener. All right, and let's try this even less, something like that. And let's see, where's our strength? Turn it up, make it nice and bright. All right, let's give it another shot. So you can see, in a way, like you can go into the content browser, and there's a couple pre-made subsurface scattering materials, but it's really dependent on the scale of your scene. Because, you know, like a swimming pool full of milk and a glass of milk or just a drop of milk are all going to have different settings to have, you know, an appealing scatter through it. But yeah, look at this, is sweet looking. You can get some really nice effects. And this, so far, is only in the luminance channel. We haven't even put any sort of specular or reflection on this. Yeah, looking very nice. And then also if we end up using some of the motion blur, works nicely with this. But keep in mind, each layer of that is adding to your render time. Yeah, looking very nice. But what's also the key to making your subsurface scattering look nice is your placement of your lights. See, we got a bunch of lights there, and you kind of have to place the angle of your camera so your light is almost popped right at it. So, like, say for instance, if you were creating a skin shader, I mean, this is non-liquid, but you know, to really see the full effect of it, you would have like a light behind an ear or something like that. It's going to give you the stronger look to it. All right, so now let's turn this off for a second. Let's look back at our material, and I'm going to make a couple more changes here. Let's turn this to multiply, and that will give us a little bit more bright. Let's turn this brightness up too. And now let's turn on our reflectance, and add Beckman, and something, let's see, not quite too hot. Let's see, dialectic. And then let's add some roughness, kind of a lot, and not quite so strong. All right, and then let's make this a little bit of color. All right, let's give another test render. And taking a little bit long as we start adding more of the map channels on here. And you just hold on a sec. All right, so let's check this out. Let's see if we can compare it to the previous one with kind of less specular going on. All right. Now we can see it's the bottom one. It's the new one. We can see we're getting these nice specular hits. And it kind of gives a much greater impression of the shape. And let's give it another whirl with the HDRI going active and global illumination. So let's go ahead and turn the sky back on. Go back into our render settings. Turn on global illumination. And let's give it a whirl. And once again, I'll spare you the wait. All right, let's see how it's looking. It's definitely looking a lot nicer. It took a little bit more time. So you can see each time we start adding a little bit more, 1 minute, 4.5, 6 minutes. But here, let's do a little bit closer comparison here. Let's turn this guy on. All right, so let's see. Oops. I actually like this one better. And let's get our label. Yeah, our label. Okay. So A is the one that we just did. So you can see it's brighter. You know, definitely the HDRI adds, you know, lights all those little nooks and crannies. And if we had the reflection cranked up a little bit more, we'd see, you know, some kind of busy stuff on there. But I'm thinking with a material like this, you don't want to have so much crazy busy reflections. So I think this is pretty nice looking. One other addition I'd like to add on here, and of course it's, you know, it's definitely going to add on to the rendering time. Here, let's turn this guy off here. Let me turn this off. Let's go into our render settings, and let's first of all put on physical render. And I'm going to go into physical and enable motion blur, and just leave it at its standard settings here. And now, on the mesher, let's go to the object. And we have a slider for motion blur strength. Let's check it out at its default strength here. Let me just kind of play this, just make sure this has enough speed where, you know, let's set up another scene to really show you the motion blur, because this the movement created from this isn't really fast enough to show you what I want to show you. All right, so let's just set up a relatively simple scene. Get a smaller circle emitter, and turn that a little bit. Let's move it over here. All right, and then make a sphere. All right, and now let's make sure we've got a gravity going on. Let's add a collider tag to our sphere, and I just want to make sure this has a little bit more bounce and not too much friction. Maybe a little roughness. Okay, and a mesher, of course. And it's not really making it. Let's go to our emitter, and we'll crank up the speed and a little bit of randomness. All right, let's try that. I think we can crank up the speed a little bit more. Let's try again. All right, there we go. Now we're starting to get like a splash. Okay, a little bit more speed. Looking good. All right, and then we want to sort of kill it after a while too. So let's make a kill of volume. And just so it's kind of taking up the space we're using. Until I can probably even bring this up a little bit. Let's see how that's doing. Looking good, looking good. All right, let's look at this splash here, and let's kind of make it a little nicer looking. Let's add a sheeter. And let's make the minimum cavity size relatively large. This a little smaller. And use age. And also this, actually not age. No, let's try that. Yeah, that's looking nice. All right, let's go ahead and cache that, and let's maybe add a couple more. You know, I'd like this to render a little faster, so I'm not going to add as many particles as I might in a final render, just because I want to be able to do a couple changes quickly. All right, so now let's go here. We'll cache it out. And that's going relatively quick, and then we'll make a very quick material just so we can see things a little easier. Yeah, that's always the struggle when you're working with this, is to sort of streamline your scene enough so you can keep making quick test renders to check out your changes. But, you know, at some point down the line, just like, you know, dealing with ray tracing or global illumination, you know, to get the really sweet results, you got to crank the results up, and that always takes some time. All right, let's check this out. All right, that's looking nice. Okay, let's adjust our mesh properties a little bit. Crank this up. Try maybe medium. All right, that's looking nice. Let's maybe have a little bit more thinning. Looking good, looking good. All right. Okay, let's make a pretty simple material. Just pick something that will render fast. Let's make this red. And then I'll make another material for our little sphere. And this one will be green. Alright, and then let's put this on our sphere. So now let's check it out without the motion blur going on. So let's where's physical, and let's not turn this on quite yet, and we'll just do a quick render. Oh, too small, too small. Let's get a nice size. There we go. All right, looks very static. Let's go in and add that motion blur. Go into physical, and let's try it with the default settings. And you can see it renders pretty fast. You know, it's just a little bit slower than what we might have without. So what was this, 5 seconds? But this is okay, I guess a little bit longer. Oh, looks nice. You know, no artifacting, no sort of ghost images. You know, and also this enables you to get away with a lower res mesh, because if you were like, let's check out this. We had a relatively low mesh. Now we can see when we're going in sharp, we're seeing some kind of little angles and stuff that, you know, it takes away from it looking like a fluid. But once we've got the blur on, you don't see any of that. So that can be a strategy for sort of speeding up your render times. You know, if you don't need to have the quality of each little lump and bump, this can look very realistic and ultimately, you know, kind of save your need for detail. All right, so now let's go and adjust that slider and see what that looks like. So let's just try it in half. See what the difference is with that. All right. Let's get back out. Yeah, let's see, where's our comparison. Set this as A. Oops. Set that as A. And this as B. Not bad. This is the same frame, but you can see the blur sort of drags it out. But you know, it can be very helpful, in especially when you're doing animation for making things look like it's really splashing. Let's do a quick little animated preview at this 50% level. So just hold on, and I'll render this. All right, let's check our progress. Yeah, I don't think we need to let all this render. Let's check it out. Let's let it play. Looking nice. You see, just that little bit of blur. It doesn't make it seem like, oh, you got some fuzz in your eye. I think cranked up all the way is a little bit much. Maybe if you were having like an explosion or something, it might be all right. But I think like this is just enough to give it that look of realism. And like I said before, kind of, you know, helping you minimize the level of detail in your scene necessary to create the same effect. All right, guys. Well, I hope you have fun with this, and you know, feel free to try your own material effects on here. But one last note that I'd like to make is, you know, this is this crazy shape. It has some pretty basic UV coordinates. So in terms of using like noise or a checkerboard or something like that, you might not want to, unless it's for just a still. All right, guys, have fun, and we'll see you on my next lesson.
You could use no makeup. I was leaning sideways, you were leaning under. We were gonna stop, but there was no place to stop. And I'm holding you, you're holding me. My heart, it feels like a dancer. You got my plans, you got me right. You saved the moment like a dancer.